to listening in as we have Jack Frizzle and Kendall Garman or Gardner. And both of them are with the Digital Education Group. We appreciate both of them being with us today. As you know, Tech Tuesday, our goal is to show you tools and applications to show you and provide information that will help you be successful as an agent or a specialist or the support staff, the wonderful support staff that we have out there. And so today we're going to learn about our event systems that we have currently in place and may hear about a few things that will be coming up in the future. But I'm going to turn it over to Jack and Kendall. Thank you so much for being part of this, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Hale. We are glad to be here. My name is Jack Frizzell. I joined Texas A&M in 2019 by way of Dubai. Worked in animal science at the same time as Dr. Hale. And good to see a friendly face here. And I see a lot of other people that I've talked with on the list for today. Currently, I work in digital education as the e-commerce manager. A lot of the work that I've done prior to this has been on the project management side of things. So you'll see a little glimpse into that. But I want to give a quick shout out to the e-commerce team members right at the start here. Many of you have worked with them, Joshua Frazier, Jose Cantu, and Emily Denton. And they are absolute stars, and they're the ones who make sure that our collaborations with you for your events go off as a success. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share this and get straight into it. For some reason. Can you tell me what you see?
It looks like we've got the PowerPoint up. It's just in the editing format and not the viewing format.
Okay, and how's that?
That looks perfect.
Great. Teams is being a little persnickety. It's not actually showing me what you're seeing. I'm sorry. All right, so here's our event registration support presentation. The first half of this, I will cover the platforms that we are using, and one of the platforms that we are looking at to get us past the interim platform that we are working from right now, and also delve into the processes so you have an idea of what happens after you contact us that needs to happen. So a lot of work is put in up front by you, getting all the event information ready, all the things planned out, and then the registration sites need to be created. So just wanted to have an idea of what that looks like. So starting out, give a brief overview, just a couple of minutes here, and then get straight into how to request support for your event, and then move into some important timelines that happen after your request is submitted, and then a deeper dive into what happens in the background so you have an idea of the work that's created by using the interim platform, and then space for questions and answers. So currently, we are using Flywire for event registration, and some of you may ask and have the question, why Flywire? The previous platform that we had for AgriLife agency was internally built. It was custom web application, but it was found that it was insecure and unupdatable. So basically what this meant was it put our event data and our registrant data at risk. And so there was no option but to look for another platform. So event registration support as it currently exists is provided by a cross-functional team in digital education. So when we delve into the workflow in just a minute, you'll appreciate that customer service is one of the sub-teams that's involved, e-commerce is one of the sub-teams that's involved, and then the business coordinators is one of the sub-teams that's involved. And that's just in digital education. So using Flywire also puts us in contact with business coordinators in system and finance in the agency. So there are lots of handoffs, lots of moving parts that go into event registration support. Flywire was chosen because it's a system supported platform for payments processing. And so what has happened is, together with you, our team has found ways to make Flywire work as a registration platform in the interim. Why are we using it? It's available, it's secure, and it is temporary. Coming up next, we're hoping to move to a different platform. This platform's name is Eventry, and that's what's happening now. The agency is evaluating a short list of platforms, and they are engaging Eventry on a contract at this time. So we hope to hear good news in the future, but just want you to have an idea of what's happening behind the scenes while we're working together with you on Flywire. Once a contract with Eventry or an event platform is signed, what's coming is the return of 24/7 roster access. So right now, roster access is a pain point under Flywire. The return of waitlisting, and also the ability to embed events where you currently host other content. So instead of having to dive off to Flywire, people can see right where they're used to being your event. So that brings us to the next spot and says, where we say, how do I get support for my event registration? Everything starts with this form, and those of you who've done events before have seen this form, and we'll share the link at the end of this presentation in the chat. This is a joint form that we have worked together with marketing and communications in the AgriLife agency. And so this first part of the form applies to both of our service units. So when you fill this out, both Marcom and digital education get a notification that you are interested in some kind of service or support. By selecting on the last item, event registration, it will pop open the next part of the form for event information. And this gets into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about here today. So you put in an event title and it tells us what type it is. There are other questions along the way. And one of the benefits of this form is that the previous form was limited in how many questions and what types of questions we could ask. And so there were multiple touch points. Those of you who've done events before know that there are long email threads and chains that go back and forth, trying to gather the information, tweak the information. And also the form that we had prior to this one was a difficult one for us to actually make changes to. Just in the past 2 months, in my role as e-commerce manager, we've been able to respond to event organizers and change this form immediately based on feedback to add or change wording or update the flow. And so this is a very important step that you've helped us with in our collaboration over the last 2 months. That whole first part that we just saw, those 2 screen caps, is information that goes to Marcom and digital education in our partnership in supporting your event. This question right here is where the rubber meets the road. Do you need a site for people to register or purchase tickets through for this event? Make sure that you select yes if you want a site on Flywire or in the future Eventry. This is very important here. It is easy to overlook and accidentally click no, and then you'll get a link out on Livewire, but you won't on Livewhale, but you won't get the registration site set up. So make sure when you're filling in this form that when you see this question, you hit yes. And you can see the next section tells you exactly what it is, event registration information. One of the changes the form has allowed us to make up front is to reaffirm and invigorate the relationship between business coordinators across the agency. Some of you wear multiple hats. You are the event organizer and the business coordinator, but some of you work in tandem with a business coordinator. And one of the pain points we've seen and addressed because of our work with you is the financial string information, making sure we front end that, making sure that that is validated straight out of the gate. There are more questions that come up as you go through, and depending on what you select, you'll get more or fewer questions. So for example, at the bottom of this one, do you have a limited number of registrations for this event? If you say yes, then another part will pop open and ask how many you want to limit your event to. And again, there will be a handout after this presentation, a PDF handout that has all of these questions on there. Continuing on, there are questions about registrations, pricing, early bird sponsorships, and even more detailed questions. What's happened again is we've reduced the number of handoffs and touch points, and we're collecting all the information up front. We know that you've done a lot of the work already. By the time you get to us, we want you to be able to just put it in and get off and running. The next important question for you when you submit is this one here. It says, do you have any files or event materials to add or include? This is the last question for event registration support. Now, due to a limitation in the form currently, and I'm working on this, there is a button at the bottom right that says next instead of submit. If I'm able to fix that, I will fix that. But just note when you submit your event, this is the last question for event registration. So when you hit next, you're going to get a thank you note. And so as you're going through, look for this question here as the last question. Right, a brief overview of the timeline. All of your work, setting up the event, getting the venue ready, determining all of the requirements for the event is complete. What's next? There is a 10-day buffer between when you submit and when registration starts. So please make note of that. There are a lot of handoffs that go on. We work to reduce the number of handoffs and reduce the amount of time, but plan for a minimum of 10 days between when you submit and when registration begins. Even better, give us 20 business days. So at the beginning, we've divided this registration support out into project phases. First is preparation, making sure that there's a business code, that it is an active business code, make sure it's a valid business code, make sure that it's actually paired with your part, college system, college research or extension. A lot of pain has been experienced initially working with Flywire over this. So we are making sure to front end the business confirmations at the beginning of this process. Find time, SharePoint, and teamwork. Flywire only does the purchasing part of things. There are other applications that we have to do. There's a manual lift, extra labor, extra work that goes into making sure the event goes off well. One of these tools that we've added in this quarter is Find Time. So you'll start to get Find Time polls from Josh or from Jose. And we ask that you fill those in straight away as soon as you get them so that the meeting can take place straight away. SharePoint is also another tool that we use to make sure that any of the files that you submit for your event, any flyers, and also the rosters, because rosters are not accessible through Flywire, the rosters are here on SharePoint. So all of that has to be set up in the background in this preparation phase. And then teamwork, you'll see in a little bit, is where we track all of our work requests. The creation phase, Flywire setup takes 3 days, Flywire approval, 3 days. What this means is that one of the e-commerce coordinators creates the event in Flywire, hands it off to the event organizer for approval, and then it comes back, gets us an internal review, and it goes back again to the event organizer for a final approval, and then goes live. So this part of the process is very labor intensive because of how Flywire works, and I'll give you a quick peek behind the curtain in just a minute. So all of that to say, prepare and create, 10 business days, 2 weeks. So if you've got all of your stuff ready for your event, make sure that you have a 10-day buffer between when you submit and when the registration starts. Support. If there are planned changes, a lot of features are not automated in Flywire. Those will take a day because we do know, and they will happen on the day that they're scheduled for. Unplanned changes, there'll be a form that you have to submit, and those changes will be subject to 2 days. Total for the next part, the closure of the event, 7 business days to a month. So this involves reconciliation and gathering of insights. At the end of each event, we make sure to send an event organizer a survey so that they are aware of, so they can make us aware of any places where we can improve our processes or how we use the platform. So please do take the time to fill in this end of event survey. We launched this new process in Q4, and we learned very quickly that we need to start with the business coordinators. So even before we get into event creation, we get an automatic notification from your submission. So if you do a test submission, we know about it. If you do a live submission and it needs a correction, we'll reach out to you and make sure that it gets corrected. Prepare teamwork product code. Teamwork, I'm going to show just a little bit of that product code. Every event has to have a code associated with it. And there's an event organizer folder in SharePoint, and then the find time for the discovery, and then the discovery meeting. Discovery meetings, it depends on the complexity of the event, but those go fairly quickly. And there's a very clear checklist that we move through to make sure that our time is used efficiently. All of the events are stored in our project management software. And you can see we are very serious about making sure that event organizers are informed of what's actually possible and what's not possible, what the timelines are from this first one here. Event organizers signed agreements. After the discovery meeting, we ask you to fill in an agreement, just acknowledging what the terms of the service are. Live event changes, those are things we've handled ad hoc in the past. We're going to make sure that we actually log all these so we know where the issues are cropping up and then how to address them. And last but not least, the lessons learned. At the end of the event, when you get that link from your e-commerce coordinator, please fill that out. We do take that very seriously, and we meet weekly and go over those to improve our processes and how we use the platform. Teamwork gives us an overview, bird's eye view of what's completed. Those ones that are checked green are done. The ones that are white are still in process. And you can see we can sort, filter everything directly here. This is an important efficiency for us. Before we had things off in documents and in spreadsheets, all of our work is now in one place, and so we can better serve you. Another thing that we've done, thanks to Emily Denton, our student employee, and Josh Frazier and Jose Cantu for their hard work on the rosters. The rosters initially on Flywire were very, very difficult, very cumbersome. They are still complex. They're still, they cause some friction, but they are much better now. Each of the columns is now split out for you so that you can see the data organized in the way that you asked questions for your event. The next steps are largely conducted in Flywire, but we also do reach out to our partners in marketing and communications, make sure that the LiveWell calendar is updated if you requested that in your original submission. And we also update the invoice request form. So this is, again, an example of where we're working with multiple groups here. The invoice request is updated by the business coordinator team. Flywire, for those of you who don't know what it looks like on the back, and for those of you who do, turn your heads, turn away, trigger warning. This is Flywire on the back end. There is a minimum of, I think, 7 clicks just to get the list of events. And so our e-commerce coordinators are doing a lot of work just to set the time on the platform and then make sure they locate the event. The events are only filterable by event name, and all of the event pieces are built in different places in Flywire and then connected. So this is what the back end of your Flywire event looks like. This is a sponsorship. It's a fairly straightforward one. There's only 2 levels. And you can see down at the bottom all of the settings that our e-commerce coordinators put together for each of these events. Just take a minute and let that sink in. So we are very grateful for their hard work and for making Flywire actually work for us by connecting it with Teamwork, connecting it with SharePoint so that our events can continue to move forward. The support phase, this involves the special pricing management, refund request process. That's the business team. You're going to see a little bit about that at the end here. Invoice request processing, and then final reminder to registrants is another sub-team in the digital education group who you probably have worked with before, our customer service. And they are very good at closing tickets and making sure that event registrants are aware that the event is going on. At the end, please fill out the event registration survey that's sent out by the area commerce coordinator. And then the close is business reconciliation, event registration, and then support close. At the end, we meet together as a team over each of the events and make sure that we actually apply the lessons learned. They're not stuck in email, they're not stuck in chat, they're not stuck somewhere else. They actually do make a difference. And we do appreciate all of you who have used Flywire during this interim period. I'm going to go ahead and stop for a second here and ask if there are any questions.
Hi, Jack, it's Lindsay. There were a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm happy to read those to you. What about working with POs and providing W-9s?
I'm going to punt on that one. I don't do the business side of things. So I think what I'll do with this one, if Kendall, if you want to dive in here and provide an answer, or if we can take down the question and the person who asked that question, we can get back with an answer for them.
Jack, I'm fine with answering the question. Hi, everybody. Super. I'm Kendall Garner. I'll be giving a more formal introduction whenever we get to my section. So with POs, we do not work with POs directly in a sense that we will fulfill the order. The customer will need to request to be invoiced for the registration, and then the invoice will include that PO number, and so then they will pay that invoice based on their PO. And then with the question about providing the W-9s, could I get a little more clarification on that question?
I believe what they're talking about, and Laura, forgive me, or feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're talking about when a county wants to put on an event, they don't necessarily have a like 07 or an 02 account. Most of them just have bank accounts that they would utilize. So I believe in the past they have provided a W-9 for the funds of the income of the event to go to. So I believe that's what she's referring to.
No, I was actually not referring to that. I have a 2 account, but many of the people who attend my programs are employed by other governmental entities, and a lot of times they request a W-9 from us for their records. An AgriLife W-9.
Okay, we can provide that to any customers. So at the end of my presentation, I will have a slideshow that's going to provide you guys with an email address to contact the business coordinators for any questions related to registering, billing questions, or refunds. And then I'm also going to be providing some links to all of the information that we have covered, and also some handouts and how-to videos as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification.
So Kendall, back on the invoice. So if we had a events planner that was putting this together and they had that request, they would go to that event planner would ask you to send them an invoice and place the PO number on that invoice. Is that right? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that information would be included on the invoice, so they would be able to give that to their accounting department, and they would be able to pay that invoice and reference that PO number on there.
Awesome. Another question we had was from Nick. It says business coordinator part had me confused. Are they just going to put down their supervisor from the office? They have somebody who's outside of their county office who manages the account. So are you wanting them to put whoever is managing the business account, or whichever person is maybe helping or managing the actual event?
So Kendall, a lot of these groups have local committees that have their own bank accounts, and there's a treasurer in that local committee that's outside of Extension that operates and manages those funds.
Yeah, so they should be provided with either an 07, 06, or an 02 account. And they would be using that account number that they have been provided through A&M. So that representative that you'll want to use is the individual that has familiarity with the account, so they know which accounts to use. Because I know some extension offices have multiple accounts that they utilize, some for expenses, some for revenue. And so we will need the individual that's responsible for the account, so we can make sure that we're receiving an accurate account that can receive revenue for your event.
Awesome. And then one final question. Is there an estimated timeline for the new registration platform, Avanti?
There is not an estimated timeline that I'm aware of. So that's the long and short of it. One of the things, well, I can give you one case. We have worked with one of our partners for the events for next year. Some people plan their events and have the registration open very early on in the year. We have worked with that event organizer to set up the first 2 quarters, so the first half of 2023 in Flywire, with the understanding that those events will stay in Flywire regardless of whether a new contract is inked with Eventry or not. But we don't want to put all of next year's eggs in one basket. We are hopeful, but there is no timeline.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions before we move on to the next portion of the presentation? All right, I believe 10 seconds is the magical number, so we can go ahead and move forward with the next part of the presentation. And then Kendall, if you are talking, you are actually muted.
Unfortunately, the way this presents, I'm gonna end the show because I'm assuming.
Yes, can you see my screen now, Jack?
Yes.
And everyone? Okay. So, hi everyone, my name is Kendall Garner and I'm the Business Coordinator 2 with AgriLife Digital Education. I joined digital education in June of 2021. I'm responsible for overseeing the registration portion of events by ensuring that individuals are able to register for an event through our website, either by credit card, debit card, or requesting an invoice. I also serve as one of the point of contacts for all billing related questions for registering for an event, cancellations, and refunds. So today I'm going to be covering how to register for an event with by invoice and by credit card or debit card, and then how to request a refund. And then we will have a short section for questions and answers. So with the how-to registration, we're actually going to be showing a video that's going to walk you guys through requesting an invoice for a registrant or paying by debit or credit card on our website. So I'll pull that video up really quick.
Access the AgriLife Extension Events Registration homepage and select the event you want to register for. Today, we will be registering for the District 11 County Judges and Commissioners Conference. Once selected, you will be redirected to the event listing page. Scroll down to the invoice section. Select the linked form AgriLife Events Invoice Request. You will be directed to the invoice request page. Complete the required questions for the registrant. Then click the arrow at the bottom of the screen. If you are registering more than one person, fill out the prompted information. Please note that if you are registering 2 people and only one person's information is included in the list of names and email addresses, it will be assumed that the other registrant is the person that the registrant questions were completed for on the first page. After either completing the information for all registrants or selecting that you are only registering one person, select the title of the event you are registering for. Scroll down and open the Customer Information form link. A new page will open. Complete the information required. Please note that the federal ID number is required and forms submitted incomplete will not be processed. This will delay the invoice process until a completed form is submitted. Download the completed form. Resume your submission on the invoice request page. Select the gray box and select the completed form. Once the form has been uploaded, select the arrow at the bottom of the page. If the event has additional registration questions, complete them and select the arrow again. You will be directed to a completion page that displays a thank you message. Once you receive this message, the request for an invoice has been submitted to be processed. You will receive the registration confirmation and invoice within 5 to 7 business days.
And so we will also go back to the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go over this briefly. So this was the steps that were outlined. I do have a couple of notes to talk about. So with the invoice request, you will make sure that you complete the name and email for both registrants if you're registering more than one person in the box that asks for both. As it stated in the video, say Bob was the one that was completing the invoice request. He was completing it for himself and 2 others. He will need to include his name in that second section where it asks for the name and email of all people being registered for that. Another thing to note is that on the actual Flywire storefront, you will not be adding anything into your cart whenever you are selecting to be invoiced. You will be working solely off of that invoice request form page. And so I have had a lot of individuals that will try to add their registration to the cart and check out that way, but nothing is needed from that. So typically we would prefer if the event organizer just provides that invoice request link to the customers that they know they're going to be requesting invoice. So it delays any kind of, or it eliminates any kind of confusion with going to the actual storefront, going on the event and seeing the add to cart option. Okay. And then the next one I will be going over is the credit, how to register and pay for by a credit card. So I'll play that video.
Access the AgriLife Extension Events Registration homepage. Select the event you want to register for by clicking on the event title. Today, we will be registering for the District 11 County Judges and Commissioners Conference. Once selected, you will be directed to the event listing page. Complete the required registration questions for the registrant. After all questions are answered, select Add to Cart. If you are registering more than one person, you will need to complete the process for everyone you want to register. After adding all registrants to the cart, click on the shopping cart icon on the top right of the page. A small box will appear and display the registrations in the cart. Scroll down and select View Your Cart. You will be directed to the shopping cart page. Review the registrations in your cart for accuracy. After confirming this information is correct, select Checkout. You will be directed to a login or guest page. If you have previously registered with the site, enter the email address and password associated with your account and select Login. If you do not wish to log in with a registered account, select Checkout as Guest. You will be directed to the checkout page. Complete the billing information and select Continue at the bottom of the page. You will be directed to a page with the payment section at the bottom of the page. Select Pay Now. A pop-up window will appear and you will enter your credit or debit card information. Select I have read, understood, and agree to the terms of use and privacy policy, and then select Continue. After completing the checkout process, you will receive an email confirmation confirming your registration was successful. Please review your email address for accuracy before completing the registration process, because email addresses cannot be updated in the system to resend confirmation emails.
And so when you select to register, and something to note about the email address, like was mentioned in the video, we cannot adjust that in the Flywire backend. We've had a lot of customers that have requested to have the confirmation resent to them, and because the email address that they provided whenever they registered was either the wrong email address or there was a typo in there and they needed it sent to a new email address. We cannot send the original email confirmation. However, there is a workaround. We can take a screenshot of the registration and send that over to the customer, but that is not the full email confirmation that you were originally sent. So that is something to note. And then next, we will be going over how to request a cancellation or a refund. So if a cancellation or a refund becomes necessary for an event that you're registered for, you must submit the cancellation or refund request. So this is a form like the invoice request form. So you will be asked a series of questions about the event. It'll ask your name, your email address, and your phone number, the event that you're registered for, and the basic information for the event. So all cancellation and refund requests are subject to the event cancellation and refund policy that's listed for your specific event that you're registering for. So it is important that you review the refund and cancellation information that is listed on the event homepage, because we will have to adhere to those refund policies. In the event that the request does not follow the guidelines that are outlined for that event, the event organizer can make an exception to apply it towards that refund for extenuating circumstances. So the determination of extenuating circumstances is solely the decision of the event organizer. So you will come into, or you will have the option to reach out to the event organizer and request that exemption. Typically, the business coordinators will do that on behalf of the customer. If the customer states, you know, there was a serious illness in the family, they weren't able to make it, they know that it's outside of the cancellation timeline, but they would, you know, really appreciate a refund, we can reach out to the event organizer and let them know. Typically, the event organizers are very good with working with the customers. However, if they have already paid for, you know, any kind of reservations that are required for the event, they can take that from the refund. So you would receive a lesser amount if the refund was approved for that exemption. And so refund approvals and denials will be sent via email from the AgriLife Learn billing at ag.tamu.edu email. So that is the shared email address for the business coordinators, and we handle all business related questions and responses through that email address. So if you do have any questions about an event for like registering or canceling, then that is where you would send those responses. So refunds are processed within 7 to 10 business days of approval. Once we get approval from the event organizer, then it is sent over from Whitney Minix, which is my colleague. She will send that approval over to me, and then I will get that processed. I process refunds typically 3 times a week, and so we do try to get those refunds out faster than the 7 to 10 business days. However, we do like to add that cushion in just in case there is, you know, something going on. Maybe I'm out of the office or something like that. And then this is the section that I was talking about previously that will provide you with links and then the email address to contact us. So these links will link you to the event registration homepage for Extension Research and the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. They do each have their own homepage landing that will have the list of events for that organization listed on there. And so I've listed them here for you so you can provide those directly if you have individuals that are interested in, you know, maybe some extension events, or if they're interested in some research events and they want to see what is offered. We do have that landing page. The next link is for the invoice request form. So this will link you directly to that invoice request form so that customers are not having to go to the Flywire homepage, find their event listing, and then go to the bottom of the page and select on the invoice request form. The next one is the cancellation or refund request form. So this will link you directly to that form so that customers can submit that cancellation or refund. And so you could provide that to a customer if they had questions about a refund. You could provide that link. They will complete it, and then we will handle the refund from there. And then the last two are the how-to videos that we showed in this presentation. So they are broken down by registering by invoice and then registering by debit or credit card. There is also a PDF how-to guide that was given to Lindsay that she'll be passing out at the end of this event. And that will have step-by-steps written out with screenshots of the steps, and then it'll also have the link to the video if you would prefer to watch the video, and you can share this with any of your customers if they have questions or concerns about how to register on the site. And so that is the end of the presentation for me. If anyone had any questions.
I can read you off one question, I believe. When participants are paying with an invoice, can the event organizer customize the questions that the customer needs to answer? Example, adding things like first and last name, email, physical address, driver's license, food allergies, those types of things.
So on the invoice request form, and I can actually go to the website and show you, the questions are the same as in the original submission that you submitted for your event. So if you have any additional questions. I don't know if there is an event off the top of my head. I'm going to try to find one. Okay, so this event, this is the 2023 Spring Vector CEU program. It does have additional questions that are asked here in the form. So whenever we go to the invoice request, that will be listed on here. So I'm just going to scroll down. And so I selected the event. It's going to ask me to upload the form. Over to the next page. And so this will list out all of the questions that were originally asked of the registrant. And so we do follow the same exact format for the event listing.
Awesome. And then another question, is there a way to make or force registrants to only be able to register one person at a time? I know we talked about in the invoice part if you were registering multiple people and how to fill out that form, but is there a way to make it to where they can only register one person at a time due to the need for specific information?
Yes, so if the event organizer wants to request that they can only register one individual at a time, that is an option that we can do. So we will customize each listing on this form to the event listing. So if you do want that only allowing one individual, that is an option. I will advise that if that is the case, then the registrant that is registering, so say I gave an example of Bob earlier was registering himself and 3 other individuals. It will come through as 3 different invoice requests. And so they will be processed 3 different invoices. And so that can make it a little cumbersome for the individual that is registering if they are trying to pay for themselves and 2 other individuals. They do not usually want 3 different invoices.
Alrighty, and then regarding the links that you showed us on that last slide, what is the specific web page or where do these links live?
So the first set of links, I'll go back to the presentation. So the first 3 links are the actual Flywire home pages. So that will take you to the home page where it shows the event listings for that department. So either extension research or the college. And then the 4th and 5th link, those are the invoice request forms and then the cancellation and refund request forms. So those are Qualtrics forms. And so basically it's a survey. And so those forms are the AgriLife Digital Education's forms that we have created in-house. And then the last 2 links are through our digital education Vimeo account. And so those are hosted online publicly through Vimeo.
Alrighty. Are all the questions when requesting an invoice mandatory, or can participants just answer any question?
So the questions are mandatory if it is mandatory for the event listing. So if an event organizer requires that question, then it is mandatory. If it is not required, it is put on there as an optional question. And so all of the questions that are mandatory are forced through the survey. So it will not allow the individual to move through the survey without answering those questions.
Alrighty, and then just to make things a little bit easier, will you go ahead and copy and paste when you get the opportunity those last couple of main links into the chat box? That way, just our participants can find them and have access to them.
Yes, I will.
Awesome. While she does that, does anybody else have any questions? Kendall, to avoid the 3 different voices in your example, can those questions we need asked be included when someone selects more than one person?
Yes, so we can set that so the additional registrants, they will be prompted for those questions as well.
Okay, great questions. Anything else for either Jack or Kendall while we've still got them there? And again, while we're waiting on those questions, the handouts that Kendall requested that we share have been shared in the chat, along with these different links that she's popping in there for y'all. All of this will also be included along with the recording of this AgriLife presentation on our Extension Employees website, along with all of our other past Tech Tuesdays. So if anybody has any questions or is wanting to know where these pieces of information are, all of this info will be housed on that Extension Employees website, along with the video for reference. So we will make sure you have all of the info and the forms that you need. But on that note, are there any further questions? Okay, I have a sponsor that is requesting an invoice. The current option doesn't really work for that since it's specifically asking about registering a person.
So there is a separate option for sponsorships, and so the questions are different for sponsorships. And so it does ask for the company name or any of the sponsorship questions. So we go with the exact format that you send over for your event that is hosted on the website. That is the questions that are in the form.
Right, any further questions?
I want to just take a second because it's come up a couple of times from Kay and from Angela. We are working on an update to the AgriLife digital education site that will actually package all of this information together for you all to access in one place. But those people at this event have first access to these links and files.
Alrighty, and then one more good question. Is it possible for agents to add participants to the roster if someone comes in the office to pay?
So we would prefer that the event organizer or an agent not add any individuals to the roster without going through the business coordinators. So payment will need to be made through the business coordinators. We do accept on-site registration if the individual is registering on-site at the day of the event. However, payments made prior to the event will need to go through the business coordinators. So that will need to be coordinated through either myself or Whitney Minix. If you do have them coming into the office to pay, just shoot us a short message and let us know that you have, either a check or money order and they're wanting to pay. If they have a credit card and they're wanting to pay, we can actually take that credit card payment over the phone and process that for them. But we would like the business coordinators to add all registrants to the roster. That way we can eliminate any confusion with individuals being added to rosters and payment not being received here in the office.
Alrighty, so in regards to on-site registration, does the same apply or?
So with an on-site registration, yes, there is an on-site registration packet that is sent over to the event organizers. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's uploaded with their folder in.
That's correct.
Okay.
In that first phase, we make sure that the on-site registration is materials are available in that folder if they have selected for on-site registration.
And so all of that registration information will include how to receive on-site payments and then how to send them to our office so that way we can process those payments. And then I see Carrie's question about not knowing that there was a sponsor until after the event was set up. If you could please reach out to the e-com coordinator that is handling this event for you, we would like to get that sponsorship allowed. So we will need to actually set up an additional event listing for that because sponsorships have different accounting codes. And so they will need to be set up differently.
All right, would an individual be able to register and pay via phone?
Yes, they can. And so they can contact either our customer service number, or they can contact myself or Whitney Minix here at the office, and we can do the manual registration form, and then we can process that payment with our terminal credit card. And so we can do that over the phone. And then the customer, if they pay by phone, they will receive a email with the registration confirmation and then a terminal receipt.
All right, the business coordinator listed may not always be at the meeting. So let's say in the event of a on-site registration, the business coordinator might not be the person who would be collecting the money. How would you navigate that?
So the on-site registration packet has all of that information. So it goes over how to collect the payment, what types of payment we are allowed to collect. I will make note that invoices are not allowed to be taken the day of the event. So if an individual comes to the event and they ask to be invoiced, we cannot invoice them the day of the event, because we do have to make sure they are set up as a customer in our system, and that can take several days. And so the event organizer runs the risk that we will not receive payment for that if the individual attends the event and then later on, decides they, for whatever reason, do not want to pay the invoice. They, overlook the invoice request, and they never make payment. So that is a risk that we have decided to not take. So the only options that are available on site are check, money order, or to register by phone. They can call one of the, you can call in to the customer service number or the business coordinator number. Both of those are provided on that on-site registration packet, and you can request to pay by phone. And so then the business coordinator or the customer service representatives will take the customer's credit card information over the phone and process that payment. If the event also is outside of normal business hours, there is a form for the individual on site to collect that information for the registrant. And then we just ask that if it has credit card information listed on there, that you send that over to us encrypted.
All right, any other questions? These are all really, really wonderful questions. And again, I thank you, Kendall and Jack, for presenting and for taking all of these questions. I've seen my own personal share of a couple of these situations, so it's good to have that support and to be able to ask these questions. But I'll leave it because we've got a couple more minutes. But if anybody else has any questions, keep them coming. All right, once again, 10 seconds is what I've been taught to as the waiting point for questions. Dr. Rawson has a great one. Where will the recording of this be posted? All of our Tech Tuesdays are posted on the extensionemployees.tamu.edu website, and you'll see a window where it says Tech Tuesdays. Any and all Tech Tuesdays, along with any supplemental information and handouts, will be posted on that website. I'm more than happy to link in the chat. Dr. Hale, I know he might be in and out and traveling. Do you have any comments? All right, he might just be out of pocket. Again, he's on the road. So once again, I want to thank you, Kendall and Jack, for y'all's time and presentation. I found it to be very informative. I love the fact that there is a lot of meetings and being able to have one-on-one discussion with y'all in regards to these events. I am excited about the future, but I am also very thankful for y'all's support on the back end. Everybody here knows that there's a lot more that goes on in an event than just the speakers or even what the participants know. So we thank y'all very much for your time. What's the best way to contact either one of y'all if anybody here has questions?
So the email address provided for assistance with registering for an event contact the AgriLife Learn billing at ag.tamu.edu, and I will provide that in the chat. And so that is the best way to contact any of the business coordinators here within digital education.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all very, very much again for presenting. Thank you everybody for joining us. Once again, if you have suggestions, these Tech Tuesdays are for you. So if you have any suggestions on a future Tech Tuesday topic, you've got something you feel like you can present that would be helpful, please feel free to contact me, Lindsay Shepard, or Dr. Dan Hale. We are more than happy to coordinate with you and see what we can do. But once again, thank y'all very much for the presentation. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will catch you next time.